Alright, so the Eagles have officially begun mandatory minicamp, and a ton went down as we got an even closer, in-depth look into the Eagles' new-look offense, and DeVonta Smith actually made an exciting statement about the offense that makes it seem like a lot has changed for the better since last year. Meanwhile, a few positional battles seem to be brewing for the Birds, as shockingly, it seems like Nakobe could actually be in danger of losing a starting spot, while a couple Eagles cornerbacks seem to be potentially competing for a starting job as well, and one of them apparently stood out by making a few very nice plays during practice. Plus, Nick Sirianni hinted at James Bradberry switching positions and playing a new role for this team this year, but in the wake of a new injury, it seems like his Eagles future could still be in question. So let's talk about that and everything else from a wild first day of mandatory minicamp, so let's not waste any time and we'll get straight into it. Okay, so let's start off by looking at some behind the scenes videos of the Eagles hype day, as a couple videos got leaked to some of the players on set, including CJ Gardner-Johnson, who actually posted this video on his IG story, which was pretty cool, and also this one of Saquon Barkley got released as well. And honestly, it's just crazy to see Saquon fully decked out in the Eagles jersey and pads, because it really is insane that Barkley is actually an Eagle after being a Giant for all those years. And safe to say, that's something that Nick Sirianni is pretty excited about as well.
Man, Saquon, it's really nice to see him in green. You know, sometimes you see Giants fans around here with the, being so close. And they give me a good like, hey, go Giants, and I'd typically let it go. But if the guy gets me good enough, I usually say, got your best player.
You gotta love that. I mean, I think we all know that Nick is a big trash talker, and having Barkley switch to the good side after being with the bad guys for so long only gives him more ammo to talk to Giants fans, so that's pretty awesome. And it's also pretty awesome to just see all the guys out there, including Saquon during mandatory minicamp, as we saw Barkley out there catching some passes, in addition to getting video of a ton of the other guys, which I'll have playing on the screen right now. And this actually does mark the first mandatory minicamp that the Eagles have had under Nick Sirianni, so during his press conference, Nick explained exactly why he decided to change things and have one this year.
Every year you go through it and you think to yourself, what can we do better this year? I think what we, one of the things that we did, there's many things. We wanted to get some extra practices in. We wanted to have, to set the stage of as far as, this day is a little bit different than an OTA day. It kind of mirrors a day of practice. But also, you can get some meetings done that you don't have to do in training camp now. I mean, really, at the end of the day, is to get out there and work, have the whole team in here and working together and, going hard at it.
I honestly do like this change of pace, because after the horrible collapse that happened at the end of last season, it definitely could not hurt for the Eagles to get out here for some extra practices during a mandatory minicamp where everybody has to be there, unlike OTAs, which are voluntary, and just kind of get the jump on things earlier in the offseason that would otherwise be happening during training camp. Plus, we as fans just get an earlier, more in-depth look at this team than we have in the past during the Sirianni era, so I'm all for this minicamp personally. Now, as I mentioned earlier, everyone had to be there for this mandatory minicamp, but there was one exception on Tuesday, being star guard Landon Dickerson, who had an excused absence from practice due to a personal matter. So without Landon, the starting offensive line was Jordan Mailata, Mekhi Becton replacing Landon as the left guard, Cam Jurgens at center, Tyler Steen at right guard, and then Lane Johnson ending it off. And it is interesting that Mekhi Becton was the one filling in for Landon at the left guard position, because his primary position has been tackle, and just last week when Lane Johnson wasn't at OTAs, he was filling in for him. So I think this just shows you the versatility that Becton possesses, which is something that I think is very exciting and valuable to have in terms of a backup offensive lineman, and apparently overall, Becton has looked pretty good since arriving in Philly, at least according to Lane Johnson, who had some pretty high praise for him.
Yeah, no, Mekhi's, a huge guy, a lot of potential, and he's probably had one of the best off seasons here. He's played some guard at times. He's done really well, just a big, strong, powerful dude, so, I think he's going to help us a lot this year, whether he plays tackle or guard, but a guy that big that can move that well, we definitely need him out there.
So that's definitely exciting, because when a guy like Lane, who's an all-pro and a future Hall of Famer, says those things about somebody, those comments definitely hold some weight, and overall, I'm just really excited about what Becton could offer the team this year in a backup role. Again, I think his versatility is very valuable, and you could also say that about a few of the other Eagles backup linemen, with new additions Matt Hennessy and Max Sharping also having the ability to play multiple positions. And speaking of Sharping specifically, he's a guy who the Eagles actually just signed, and we actually got our first look at him on Tuesday out on the field with the team, well, this is a really good signing. As Sharping has played 5 years in the league, he started over 30 games, including some playoff games, so he's very experienced, and he also has versatility to play both guard positions. So overall, again, I do think that this is a great signing for the Eagles to get an experienced player that adds depth to the offensive line. But what do you guys think? But now, staying on the offensive line, we switch our focus to the guy that in all likelihood is going to be the new starting right guard for the Birds this year, as Tyler Steen has been taking all the first team reps at right guard during this offseason from what we've heard, and it seems like he's taken this new bigger role in stride, with Lane Johnson saying that Steen has looked good and he's been putting in the work this offseason to get better.
He's been good. I mean, he's night and day stronger, than what he was last year. So he's put in the work. We have a lot of bodies, and as you know, OTAs is limited contact. So everything's looking good, footwork, but we really won't tell till obviously training camp and we get the pads on.
Now, obviously, we have a very long way to go before we get the pads on and we actually get to see where Steen is at, but from everything that we've heard, it sounds like he's been doing really, really well so far, so that's definitely nice to hear. And now, moving on, but staying on that side of the ball, obviously one of the more exciting things about the Eagles heading into this year is the new and improved offense, as Kellen Moore has come in as the offensive coordinator and apparently introduced so many new things, and while we obviously don't know everything yet, we've gotten a pretty good amount of information come out regarding Kellen Moore and some of the changes that he's made to the offense, whether it be Nick Sirianni on Tuesday saying that he's pleased about where they are as an offense, and he's also very excited about some of the new tweaks that Moore has added into it. Or DeVonta Smith making a statement regarding the new look offense, as he said that the players are now going to be able to do certain things that they haven't been allowed to do in past years.
I think it's going to be great. Get a new style of offense around. Let guys, not have more freedom, but be able to, do things that we weren't allowed to do. Move guys around, things like that. And overall, it's always to have a fresh start. Everyone's always been playing, different positions and things like that. But, moving guys around, allowing guys to go out there and, create some one-on-one matchups and, win how they want to win.
So that's definitely very exciting, as it shows that the Eagles are transitioning to a more creative and free-flowing offense, which is something that we were begging for last year since the Eagles then had a very predictable and boring scheme. Now, Eagles reporter EJ Smith actually did some great work on Tuesday by breaking down some of the new aspects of the offense during that practice, as he outlined different formations including trips and bunch looks, as well as a more spread-out offense that we have not seen in the past. Plus, he also detailed how AJ and DeVonta have been in jet motion and used in the slot a lot more so far during this spring. So that's all very exciting, and it's just hard to imagine that A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith don't shine in this new offense, where they'll be used all over the field and put in motion a lot more. And speaking of those two, they apparently both looked good during Tuesday's practice, as Jalen Hurts targeted both of them a lot, with a lot of balls going to Smitty early with a ton of success, and also some nice throws to AJ as well, who has had a great offseason so far. Now, as far as Jalen Hurts' performance goes, it was a decent day for him, with Elliott Shore-Parks keeping track of his stats, as QB1 went 12 for 16 with no touchdowns and 1 interception. Now, as I said, a lot of his throws were on target to AJ and DeVonta. Obviously, the big blemish on his day was the interception, but you could argue that it wasn't fully his fault, as Reed Blankenship tipped the pass up into the air where it was then intercepted by Devin White, but the ball could have apparently been more on target, so Jalen did have some fault in it, but overall, that's not a reason to worry, and it wasn't a bad day for Hurts by any means. But getting back to Devin White and his interception, that actually brings me to the next topic that I wanted to talk about, which is the Eagles linebacker room in general, as there has been a very interesting development there that has become evident during this offseason and now even more prominent as we begin minicamp, as the new addition Zack Baun all of a sudden looks like he might actually have a very real shot to start at inside linebacker, as during this offseason, Baun has gotten a ton of first team reps at linebacker while Nakobe has been working his way back from injury. But at this point, Nakobe is back and healthy, but Baun is still getting the first team reps, as on Tuesday, Baun took pretty much all the snaps alongside Devin White with the first team, while Nakobe was stuck on second team. So that's definitely really, really interesting to me, as during the offseason, the Birds seem to emphasize the fact that they have faith in Nakobe Dean, and with him being a third-round draft pick of the Eagles just 2 years ago, and somebody who, due to injury, still hasn't quite gotten his opportunity yet, you would think that he would be the favorite to start alongside Devin White, but that's obviously not how things have played out so far. Now, Nakobe did get some first-team reps last week during OTAs, and got the nod in a single linebacker personnel grouping, so I don't know. This is all really interesting to me, and I feel like there definitely could end up being a competition between Dean and Zack Baun for the starting linebacker job next to Devin White, with Baun seeming to be the early favorite at this point, but what do you guys think? Now, another position where there's sure to be a ton of competition is at cornerback, where the Eagles have a ton of different guys on the roster bubble and also competing to potentially start. But what's really interesting about this whole group is that it seems like the Eagles are preparing to use a number of them in multiple different ways, as during the offseason, they've been cross-training a ton of them at different positions and putting them in different different packages and situations. For example, just on Tuesday, the media spoke to slot cornerback Avonte Maddox, where he confirmed that they've also been cross-training him at safety during the offseason. Plus, Maddox also talked about the rookies and specifically mentioned the fact that Cooper DeJean has been playing both at the inside and outside cornerback positions. And then you also look at Quinyon Mitchell, who during Tuesday's practice spent some time with the first team in the slot, and also both the rookies in Mitchell and DeJean apparently were put in the box in a linebacker-esque role in some dime packages on Tuesday, with Mitchell even holding his own against Dallas Goedert in a rep with the ones. But even with all that, perhaps the most interesting player to be cross-trained this offseason is James Bradberry, who despite all the rumors is still currently a Philadelphia Eagle. Now, during Tuesday's media session, head coach Nick Sirianni very surprisingly said that Bradberry's versatility has been on display, and he's actually been playing some safety this offseason.
His versatility, Martin. He's been. He's able. He was able to do a couple different things last year. Had played his majority of his career at corner, and then was able to do some things at the dime and some things at the nickel. Some things at the corner, and now he's working some of the safety stuff, which you'll see today. So that is, I'm excited about that and his opportunity to be able to. You've seen a lot of good corners in this league. I guess the first guy that comes to my mind, Charles Woodson. He went from elite corner to being elite nickel to being elite safety. I mean that, and so I'm excited about that for James, that he's able to do more.
So that had me very intrigued to see what JB was going to do during practice, because on top of the ongoing situation with Bradberry about whether or not he'll remain with the team or be cut or traded, now we have Sirianni acting like Bradberry is going to actually stick around and maybe even be used in a different role at the safety position, as Sirianni even said that Bradberry was set to get reps with the safeties during Tuesday's practice. Now, the unfortunate thing is that although Bradberry was at practice, he walked off the field into the medical tent after he fell down during individual drills, and he did not participate in the rest of practice, including the team drill. So we didn't see anything from him. So I'm not going to act like I really know what's going on. Some people are kind of joking, saying that his injury was planned, which honestly sounds ridiculous if I'm being honest, but I will be curious to see if this injury holds Bradberry out of any more practices, and also him playing safety is definitely very interesting to say the least. Plus, we don't even know if he's going to be on the team when the year comes around, so there's definitely a ton to unpack here, but you guys can let me know your thoughts down in the comments. But now, moving on to some other cornerbacks, we look at Kelee Ringo, who actually somewhat surprisingly started opposite Darius Slay instead of Isaiah Rodgers, which is interesting because Rodgers has kind of dominated so far during OTAs, having a pick 6 last week, and then even on Tuesday, he had a nice play, nearly picking off Kenny Pickett over the middle of the field, but getting the PBU nonetheless. But Ringo apparently was the standout of the day, as he had an amazing play on a very well-thrown ball by Jalen Hurts to break up a pass intended for Paris Campbell. He was also able to blanket John Ross in a deep shot that was well thrown, but he forced that incompletion as well, and he also apparently had very, very good coverage on A.J. Brown at one point, although A.J. being A.J. was able to muscle it away. But still, it was a very, very impressive day from Kelee Ringo, and you gotta wonder if Ringo versus Rodgers could be a potential competition to maybe start at cornerback. But yeah, obviously you also got Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and even potentially James Bradberry that you could throw in there as well. So that's all going to be very interesting to watch through these next few days and once we get to training camp. And overall, it was just a super eventful first day of mandatory minicamp, but we still got 2 more days, and I'm going to be covering it all here on this channel. So if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss when any of these videos are uploaded. And also, while you're at it, make sure you drop a like to show some support. If you did enjoy this video, I'd greatly appreciate it. And also leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. What are your initial thoughts from the Eagles' first mandatory minicamp practice? And also, if you want to watch another Eagles video going over some of the potential changes to the offense, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.